this is a reconsideration request from the city of Lava Hot Springs. Go ahead and come up and announce who you are at the mic, please, and your 10 minutes will begin then.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you again for considering this request and reconsideration. We will not spend very much time on the niceties of the day. Brian's over here recording and timing us, I understand. So we have 10 minutes.
You're on the clock.
Thank you. We recognize that. Bruce Parker, representing the city of Lava Hot Springs. Thank you again. With me is Craig Knutson, Councilmember Craig Knutson, and Councilmember Randy Begelin, also representing the city of Lava Hot Springs. You recall on the 21st of December, there was an appeal on conditional use permit 21-7, which you upheld the decision of the Planning and Development Council. There is four grounds, that we would like to raise with you in this reconsideration discussion this morning. One is the city of Lava Hot Springs does not believe the application for conditional use permit 21-7 complied with the county's comprehensive plan, nor do we believe it's consistent with the future land use plan of the county. And if you can get past those couple of items and say they're just policy discussions, then there's non-compliance issues with the zoning ordinance of Bannock County. And then finally, application and use confusion through the whole process.
Do we want to get the slide started?
Oh, yes, please.
I don't know who's in control of it.
I guess.
1, 2, 3, not it?
Just jump to the next one, thank you.
Sorry, it's on my left hand. There we go.
Thank you. And next one now, thank you very much.
Okay.
So the first item, the non-compliance with the county's comprehensive plan. As you recognized at the meeting in December, this property is immediately adjacent to the municipal boundary of Lava Hot Springs. This is in the area of city impact. That's not disputed at all, I don't believe, and you understand that. But the comprehensive plan at Objective 1.2 says that we encourage urban development within the ACI, and we believe that an RV resort park, not a campground, not something else, what was applied for was an RV resort park, is indeed urban development and should be subject to the policies of the county as applicable to the area of city impact. And then the discussion of, next one please, comes up about this issue of are we complying, next one, thank you, with the county's comprehensive plan, and you have a future land use map. I understand, and we understand it's not official, you haven't formally adopted, but certainly a guide for developers and property owners and us as a city to look at. And so what surrounds the city of Lava Hot Springs, and this is important because it constrains the future growth of our city, and we want to be able to grow, is a suburban residential designation on the comprehensive plan. Not recreational, not some other definition, but it's suburban residential, and clearly that indicates to us that the county, in concert with the city, is anticipating the growth of the city into the future, and that would be consistent with that suburban residential type density, and that's what surrounds Lava Hot Springs, essentially on the entirety of its border with the comprehensive plan. Now let me jump to the discussion of non-compliance with the zoning ordinance. We predict that Mr. Budge is going to roll up here and have a discussion with you that this complies with the zoning ordinance. The Planning and Development Council identified some conditions of approval, and they are compliant with the conditions of approval. Let's evaluate and have a discussion about that standard. Section 120 of the Bannock County Zoning Ordinance asks for consistency between the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. This is not new material. These are issues we brought up in September. We reiterated them again in November, and we continue to believe that what was approved is not consistent with the zoning ordinance. And let me read what Section 120 says. Part A, it is intent of Bannock County that the zoning ordinance shall be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Part B, in the event the zoning ordinance becomes inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, and we believe clearly it is, suburban residential, and then you've got a zoning designation of recreational, that the intent is that the Board of County Commissioners, that it become consistent, rather than approving a development within the recreational zone, your planning staff should have initiated a change to make that zone consistent with the comprehensive plan. Now, if you can get past that, then item number C says, it is intent of the Board of County Commissioners that all amendments to the zoning ordinance shall be consistent with the plan. It's clear to your staff what needed to occur. Consistency, that's the requirement of the county. Let's put that aside for a moment and say, well, that doesn't apply, Lava. Let's say that for a moment. If you can bring yourself to that, then section 530 applies to the zoning ordinance. And this is specifically related to a conditional use permit. Section 530 says a conditional use is discretionary and may be granted only in the best interest, plural, not best interest, singular, but best interest of the general public. And the applicant for conditional use permit -21-7 has the burden of showing that indeed that application is in the best interests, plural, of the general public. This applicant for 21-7 presented no evidence that whatever it was, campground, RV, resort park, whatever it may be, was consistent with provided no evidence that the best interests of the general public were met, and that they presented no information or proof that the proposed use did not conflict with the spirit or the purpose of the comprehensive plan. Why didn't they do that? An impossible test. They couldn't get over compliance with the comprehensive plan or consistency with the general plan. So we believe Section 530 applied as written and as appropriately interpreted would preclude the approval by the county of the conditional use permit 21-7. How am I doing for time, Brian? Couple minutes?
I think Nancy's keeping
I
track.
got 3 minutes left.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So how did we get here? How did we get here? The applicants for conditional use permit 21-7 applied for an RV resort park. That's what they applied for. That's what's in the application. That application was filed in late August of 2021. Then at the September Planning and Development Committee meeting, it was considered as an RV park. During October, we asked for opportunities to have a dialogue with the applicant to see if they would be interested in coming into the city of Lava Hot Springs. They rejected that idea. So what you see happening here, Commissioners, is one local authority, Bannock County, being pitted against another local authority, the city of Lava Hot Springs. This is not what we should be about. The residents of Lava Hot Springs are also your constituents, of Bannock County residents. We should be working together to meet the public needs, the general welfare of the residents of the county, right? Together. And that didn't happen. You see an applicant pitting one against the other. And then in November, your planning staff then said it's a campground. That wasn't what was applied for. It was an RV resort park. We believe we can articulate that neither of those were what were applied for. You'll recall there were 16 tiny homes and about 6 other pads for RV or trailers. We think that's nothing more than a tiny home motel or a tiny home subdivision of some, or tiny home housing project. That is a long way from a campground or an RV park. So it's like your planning staff said, well, it's a landfill. That's what we allow in the county. And that's how we're going to allow a nuclear waste depository. They both dispose of materials, but they're dramatically different in nature, purpose, risk, environmental concerns, etc. Dramatically different, but they both dispose of material. It's like saying that we want to approve a Greyhound bus terminal, transporting passengers from one state to the other, interstate transportation of passengers. That's like saying a Greyhound bus terminal is equal to a train station or an airport. There is no connection. They both move people across state lines, but they're dramatically different, and that's the point we make. Your staff got involved in use gymnastics, trying to fit a use into something that wasn't allowed. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any questions, Commissioners?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I would like to hear from the applicant and then questions probably after that for both of them. I think it might help clear things up that way.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Let us sit back.
Thank you.
Same, please announce who you are, and your 10 minutes will begin.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is TJ Budge. I'm an attorney with Racine Olson. I represent the applicant, Kim Jesse and Kyle Jesse, and I have with me today Kyle Jesse. Commissioner Huff, would you mind giving me maybe a warning when I'm to my 3-minute mark?
Yep, we'll do it.
Appreciate that. Commissioners, I really like Mr. Parker and Mr. Banglin in the city, and I appreciate their concerns. I've had a good relationship with them, and I understand their frustrations. The decision today is, did the Planning and Development Council really get it wrong? Was their decision so bad that it must be reversed? I know folks in your position are kind of reluctant to do that. It was the Planning and Development Commission or Council that sat through all of the testimony. They heard it live. They spent probably an hour and a half or so hearing the arguments from both sides and really thoroughly considered the application with the input of county staff. And so the question today is, did they really get it wrong? And they didn't. I'll address each of the concerns that the city has raised. One is the city's claim that the application does not comply with Objective 1.2 of the comprehensive plan. That objective says that the county should encourage urban development within the ACAI containing current or planned utility services. We agree this is an urban development project. No disagreement there. The issue is with utility services. The county comprehensive plan encourages that they connect to city services, and that request was made by Planning and Development. So at the first hearing, Planning and Development said, go see if you can connect to city water and sewer. And the case was tabled at that point. That's the point at which the Jessies called me and said, we need help trying to see if we can connect to city water and sewer. I submitted a written request to the city of Lava to connect to city water and sewer. I appeared, that was on October 6th. I appeared at the city council meeting on October 14th, and we discussed this request for city water and sewer. And the city said, we will let you connect to water and sewer if you will annex your property into the city. At that point, we explored annexation. Interestingly, there is a home on the property that's currently connected to city water and sewer, so the property is currently served, but only for the one home that's there. As we explored annexation, we discovered that the city code does not allow this type of RV development. So the city code does allow temporary RVs in one of its zones. So if people are bringing their own trailers in, every night or every other night or whatever, the city allows that. But this project is different. These RVs are basically stationary. They're not temporary. They're going to stay there for people to come and visit, kind of like tiny homes. And there's a combination of tiny homes and Airstream type trailers. And so if the Jessies were to annex their property, they couldn't do their project. So it put them in a really difficult position. Annex into the city, can't do your project, but you can get water and sewer. And we considered maybe we annex and then try to change the city code to create a zone that allows this project. As you know, that's a big lift, and there's no guarantees. And so the Jessies decided it's in their best interest not to annex and to continue under county code. The county code does say that if the property is not annexed into the city, then Objective 1.2 says 1.2.2 says that the project shall meet county standards, not city standards. And so the Planning and Development Council got it just right. They encouraged annexation. The applicant explored annexation. Annexation didn't work, and so Planning and Development said, okay, we'll proceed under county law. And county law does allow septics and private wells. The second argument by the city relates to the future land use map. That map is a guidance document. If this were a rezone application, it would be very relevant to the rezone. But this is not a rezone. This is a conditional use permit under the current zone. The current zone is recreation, and that's the law that governs this application. A potential future zone is interesting and helpful, but it does not govern this application. We're not operating under the residential zoning requirements. We're operating under the recreation zoning requirements. That's the law that the Jessies have to live with. That's the law that they've complied with. The third argument made by the city is that the county really should be amending its zoning ordinance to comply with the comprehensive plan. I don't necessarily agree that there's inconsistency between the two, but even if there were, that argument does not warrant reversing the Planning and Development Council decision. Section 120 of the county code says that it is the intent that the zoning ordinance be consistent with the comp plan. And if they become inconsistent, then it is the intent that the zoning ordinance be amended. That could happen if there's an inconsistency. The city at any time could bring that forward and say to the county, hey, our comp plan is inconsistent with our zoning ordinance. Let's pursue an amendment. That's independent of what happens here. That really has no bearing on this application. This application is governed by the law that's in effect on the date the application is filed. And on the date the application is filed, we operated under the zoning ordinance that's in effect. It's the law in Bannock County, and we complied with all of its terms. Lastly, the city argues that there was confusion as to whether this application is for an RV resort park or a campground. Frankly, I think that's nonsense. The application says RV resort park. It was quoted up here. During the hearing, we showed a PowerPoint presentation that said Lava RV resort park. We showed pictures of what it will look like. We had a diagram of what it will look like. We showed the type of structures. Everybody knew it was an RV resort park. To send this back to Planning and Development and say, did you think this was a campground, is a complete waste of time. They knew what it was. The application stated it properly. The county code allows RV parks. There was no confusion there. In conclusion, just reinforce that the Planning and Development Council spent a lot of time, and they thoroughly considered the testimony. There was lots of discussion with the applicant and the city and others. This property is in the recreational district. It's governed by county law. The county encouraged connection to city services. We attempted to connect to city services. The city could have allowed us to connect even though we're outside city limits. So cities can provide water and sewer outside city limits. The city had that ability. The city refused to do that. They essentially leveraged their water and sewer to try to force annexation. And I appreciate their reason for doing that. I don't think it was in bad faith or anything like that. I think it was just a business decision of the city that they would have preferred to annex the property. And we would have annexed had we been able to pursue this project. As it stands today, this project is authorized under the county zoning ordinance, which is the law that governs the property. It's not allowed under city code. In conclusion, the decision was thoroughly vetted. It was reasonable. It was legally correct. And I don't believe there's a compelling reason to reverse it. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Good. I'm actually going to ask our staff. Any comments, concerns?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes,
just very quick. So a formal request for annexation was made to the city?
Correct. Oh, no, a request to connect to city water and sewer.
Was made. So there was no further request for annexation then?
So we attended the city council meeting, and the city council encouraged us, basically said, if you will annex, then we'll let you have city water and sewer. The matter was tabled at that point, and we explored annexation and discovered that if we annex, we can't actually do this type of project. There's no zone that allows it. Even though this is really kind of like a less intrusive use than like a RV park where people are coming and going with their own trailers, the city code just doesn't allow it. So I did go back to the city council and say, we can't annex because you don't have a zone that allows this type of project. Will you give us water and sewer even though we're outside city limits? And they declined at that point.
A follow-up question. So you indicated that the zoning that is there would not allow it. What zone are you referring to then? Or is there no zone in the cities C1, C2, R2, R3, or special use that allow it?
There's no zone that allows it.
Okay.
The city has
Comment from Mr. Banglin?
That's not accurate. The commercial zone allows campground and RV park. There's one right in town, downtown. The R3 zone also allows a motel. And as Bruce referred to, this could be classified as a motel. Motel is attached or detached building for overnight use, and that's in the R3 zone as a conditional use. So when we had a meeting with we discussed connected to city services, and we asked them, well, we would like you to annex. What proposed was a land use that you would like to have upon annexation. That was never presented to us. It just went quiet, and they declined to annex. There was a formal application to annex. There was only a formal application to connect the city water system, which we declined unless they annexed.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. So is the intent, if the ability is there, is annexation the desirable outcome, or is that just is there no intent to annex if you don't have to?
Yeah, so if the city code would have allowed this type of project, we would have annexed.
Okay.
And to Mr. Banglin's point, the city code defines a travel park as a temporary, where trailers are stored temporarily. And so, yes, they do allow RV parks, but only for temporary use. So if you and I are bringing our own trailers in and out of the park temporarily, they don't have a zone that allows the trailers to stay there permanently. And we did consider the motel argument. It was just my opinion that these don't qualify as buildings, that they're not a motel or a hotel. These structures qualify as RVs, and so I was uncomfortable with saying, hey, this is a motel or a hotel, because they just really aren't buildings.
Okay. Just one last question, Mr. Chairman. I see that in this use of the City of Lava's zoning and in their map, I see a section that is referenced just to the south of the location of this property that indicates special use. Do you know what that special use is referencing to?
I don't.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good, Mr. Chairman. I'll have some questions for the City of Lava, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
So again, as I look back through this, and I understand the plight of not having the county interfere in business, so I want to understand this because I'm trying to clear this path out. Could you please indicate to me what special uses is indicated in the zoning map of 2015 for the City of Lava?
I'm not familiar with the allowed uses. We don't have,
The
are you
reason.
talking about the comprehensive?
No, your zoning map with reference of 2015, you have the yellow section, which would be directly to the south. It says special
That's
use.
to the, who wants to show me that again?
This yellow section right here, it just says special use, and your zoning ordinance does not make reference other than 3 times to special use. It says at the discretion of the city council, special use can be done, and I can't find any definition of what that is.
What that is.
Yeah, that zoning there is R3 on it may be on that, but in the actual city zone, you have R3 along 4th West.
Okay, well, so that Dempsey Creek area, is that a special use area or a non-special use area?
My understanding, that's R3 zone. I mean, I guess I'm not really seeing your, if I can cover
This area right here, Dempsey Creek, the property is located right here. This yellow.
So this yellow, that's R3, special use is this.
Okay.
And that's.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, that's the property of the state foundation.
Okay.
Which is a state entity.
Okay.
And they don't They don't fall under our
We're-
jurisdiction.
So you don't allow special use then in your
We don't have a
community
special
then?
use zoning that in our,
Even though it's referenced in there, it doesn't, it just says special use at the.
To recognize
it's
the
so-
state property.
But it's arbitrary and capricious then at the city council to determine whatever they want to zone as special use. So you could technically zone anything inside your city then special use if the council so determines, correct?
No, that applies to property that's held by the foundation.
and that's just designated there.
Well, and that's my question.
That's the only
Well,
property
and this is what
that's
I'm-
designated special use.
And I understand that. You have a zoning classification of special use that indicates that the city council may designate as special use.
That-
You have
that's
one
not in our-
paragraph that's in
It's not in
there.
our zoning ordinance, a special use.
But-
It's
but-
just on that map.
So what I'm getting at, and the reason of my question, if I may, is in your zoning ordinance that is found, ordinance number that is there, it says special use. There's 3 references in your thing. It says special use, permitted within a district other than principally permitted use. Required permit is approval of the city council. It basically gives a discretionary use to the city council to designate any area special use as directed by your own ordinance. And so what I'm getting at is, so you have a special use, so you had a way to annex with special use.
Right, and we asked the applicants to present something to us as a land use, and
Okay?
they never did.
All right.
They come back to us and say, well, it's not allowed. We've got tiny homes in town that we've approved.
Commissioner, this goes to the heart of the question of this heavy lift discussion that Mr. Budge identified, that we get ourselves involved in a whole rezone and discussion about amending the zoning ordinance. Mr. Budge and I had a conversation that I indicated to him, Mr. Budge, your applicant is bringing forward a use that we presently don't recognize in the zoning ordinance. And I'm authorized from the city council to work directly with you to expedite that process to get a resolution. We're not going to get you involved with a whole comprehensive review of our zoning structure. But we do want to focus on the light of day on this application and have it vetted through the planning commission and the city council appropriately. And I said, I do my best to expedite that process quickly. And so to say, well, it's a heavy lift and we couldn't do it, is not correct. I said, bring forward, as Councilmember Beglin indicated, bring forward what you're proposing, and then let us review that and vet that, and get back with you then on a final determination. That process was never initiated. And so what I'm saying, Commissioner, is we were prepared to expedite their request for a zone change, a change in our zoning ordinance, whatever required to have them be considered.
Okay. One last question, just into that. So what's the total acreage of this property? Just
5 acres.
5 acres.
5 acres, thereabouts.
Okay, so how many parcels could they realistically split that down to if they moved into the city of Laverne?
Well, right now, the site plan proposes 22.
Okay.
But that's not a division, that's just simply a site plan.
Just a site plan,
Yeah.
yep. But if they were to divide, because I've noticed that in the zoning that is allowed R2, you can have a 6-unit hotel on, and it states that your size, so if they were to split that into 5 units, they could theoretically have 30
Units.
hotel units.
Hotel's not allowed in our.
Well, at R2, it says that you may have a 6-unit multi-house unit, so not a hotel, but you could have
Right.
and then you could use it as
For the
rentals, and you
population,
just call it whatever you want to call it,
We
right?
could go through that.
So-
We don't exactly know, Commissioner, how much of the property is actually developable. This project is on the north end of the site. The existing home that the city provides water to is on the south. And we just don't know if there's any sensitivities with floods or wetlands, et cetera. So we'd need to explore that. But let's say, for example, that it is the entirety of the 5 acres that are developable. We would consider their request under the zoning that exists or under a zone that they would request, and we could go through and monitor that and moderate it and change it, whatever we need to do.
So then it brings me to my last point in this then would be, so in your opinion then, if somebody sits on the border of the city and the city does not wish to further annexation, those people then have a right to exercise their zone that they are currently in.
In the county.
In the county, correct? With no jurisdiction of the city if the city has foregoed its request for annexation.
What
We-
request was that?
Yeah, well, I guess you're getting at the jurisdiction question, is that what you're getting at? I recognize we don't have any jurisdiction in the county, but we rely on the county state statute, the county zoning ordinance, and the comprehensive plan. And it keeps coming up, the comprehensive plan is only a guideline, it's only a guideline. Well, the zoning ordinance elevates it above a guideline
Yeah.
and says that it needs to be consistent. Secondly, the conditional use permit requires, as one of its 5 conditions, consistency with the comprehensive.
So I will drive back my question then. Was a formal application for annexation made for the city council or city planning and zoning to take action on?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Not an annex, no.
And Commissioners, I would add that Mr. Budge conveniently danced around the issue of non-compliance with the zoning ordinance of the county.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off there because that's not answering the question.
All right,
That was-
I'm good on.
I'm going to go back
that's it.
here to Hal. Currently, this property is zoned recreational.
Correct.
It is a conditional use that this park could meet as a conditional use in that zone.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions?
Commissioner, we vehemently disagree with that.
Okay, okay. And you've stated that, and you have it in writing, so thank you. We have up to 60 days from the day that you submitted this form, and so we'll get back to you. If there's no decision, then we uphold the decision that was made.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We appreciate your courtesy. Thank you very much. And I want to recognize Brian, who's been communicating with me on scheduling, so thank you, Brian, very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Like Shanda, you're going to step in for Braden?
Honestly, I don't know who Mary Shea is. So I'm
Mary
not
Shea.
certain if she's
Mary
like
Shea.
that.
I saw Mary Shea. I was like, I wondered when you walked in. I was like, are you representing one of these clients?
It's so nice to meet you. I apologize for that.
Nice to meet you as well.
Commissioners, good morning. We are here today to discuss the conflict public defender services for our juvenile court system. Mary has submitted a letter that has been reviewed by the council, and we are here to discuss that letter.
Okay. You've all seen the letter
Yes.
and the comments. I don't feel like we need to go into executive session. I don't think there's anything we're talking about that needs.
Do you have anything specific for personnel actions or things that would be removed from public record?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so you sent us a letter stating about your workload and not wanting any more workload. Go ahead and talk to us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you, and I just want to make clear for the record that I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not behalf of any of the other public defender conflict attorneys or on behalf of the juvenile court generally. But under my contract, I am the primary conflict attorney specifically reserved for the juvenile court. And so I am the first on deck, basically, for all of those cases. And when I took the contract in 2018, that caseload was manageable to do, but now in 2021, it absolutely is not. COVID has been a big factor in that. The child protective work has exploded, and when families are in crisis, kids act out, and so the juvenile caseload has exploded as well. And right now, I'm sure you all are aware that my contract requires me to comply with the law regarding public defenders and requires you to comply with the law as well.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it a law or suggestion from that board?
It is actually part of IDAPA. It is part of the Public Defender Commission rules.
Because we've talked to other counties, and we're the only ones that strictly adhere to that.
Well, that may be true. It may be an enforcement issue, frankly, but, and I don't want to get into the legalities of that. I'm not part of the lawsuit that was filed against the state of Idaho. But, I think that's an enforcement issue, but it is still the rule, and it's still part of my contract. It's still part of my obligation is to follow those PDC regulations. I'm required to.
I just, for just levity and lighten the atmosphere, I just searched Public Defense Commission IDAPA rules, and it brought me up on the Public Utilities Commission. I just was like, I don't think that's going to work for that rule.
So right now where my caseload is I have got the equivalent caseload of 2 full-time felony public defenders. And that is supposed to be a part-time contract. I also have a full-time job as a civil attorney. So I'm working 3 full-time jobs. And that's not serving the county. That is not serving the county.
So question, because when we put that contract in place, you were supposed to be the primary, and are you the only juvenile attorney now?
I am not the only juvenile conflict attorney. There are, I believe, another one was just hired. I believe there are 3 or 4 other attorneys who will take juvenile work, but those other attorneys are not solely designated to take juvenile contract work. And so their caseloads also include felonies and misdemeanors in the adult court. And I believe, it's my understanding, that their case counts are limited in their contracts about how many cases they can get assigned. Mine is not.
Well, and I remember this, I started thinking about this last night as I read through and prepped. So your contract was actually, you were the primary, because I forget the other attorney that was there at the time that has since left.
Yes, Warren Weber, yes.
That one was the primary, and you were supposed to be the secondary alternative. And I is, to not be because of how the case count, and that was kind of the discussion when I remember that. And I might be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure that's how that was structured. And so if, I don't know where the other conflict attorneys are set in their juvenile caseload, because I know that there's others that are not specifically, and they typically don't do as much juvenile work. And I don't know if this is a judicial, if the judges, I wish Carrie was here to talk in the assignment of cases. Because it's one thing that, understanding caseloads and all the other stuff, and, it's a hugely hot debated issue across the state. But the main thing is those juvenile cases, we are aware of the amount of time it does take in those. So I'm curious to see how that process is working, and is everything now just being put solely here and not being put elsewhere, or is it elsewhere and it's just so to the point that it's just overflowing everywhere?
That's a very fair question. So when I took the contract in 2018, the way it was presented to me, although it wasn't written in the contract, and of course I didn't meet with you all, I negotiated through your then attorney, but the way it was presented to me is that I would be the primary juvenile conflict attorney even in 2018. Warren Weber was, because he was carrying an adult caseload as well, and Judge Murray, he really does need a first chair conflict defender, because his calendar is so busy that it was impossible for Warren Weber to be back and forth between the 2 courthouses and meet his needs. And so he requested to have somebody assigned to him full-time, is how it was presented to me. And so since 2018, I have been the primary conflict juvenile public defender, meaning that when a conflict comes in, if I don't have a conflict, I'm required by my contract to take the case. And so that's how my caseload exploded. So if I have a conflict, or if I'm already assigned on the case, then they call somebody else to come in. So their juvenile caseloads are, they get a couple of cases, maybe a month.
So question, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to kind of understand this. So let's say I'm an attorney as well that's a conflict, and the juvenile case pops up, and I'm the first in the chute, and I see this juvenile case, and I conflict out of it. You're required to take it no matter what.
If the public defender is conflicted out, I have to take it no matter what, unless I have a conflict of interest.
So you can't decline or move off like some of these other guys, it's a little, okay.
Right, and that's the problem. And it was manageable really until COVID. It was really manageable until then, and this year it exploded. Right now, I'm starting the case count year, already above limits. I'm going to double it this year, most likely. It's not sustainable. We have to do something about it.
Well, I think that it's just not, I think there's probably some multiples.
So you're going to pass the 232 juvenile cases this year?
232, not juvenile cases. So I have juvenile criminal cases, and that's that's the limit for juvenile cases. I'm right at around 200 last year. Right now, I'm already at about 75 cases just for the first 4 months of the reporting year. So I'm going to get near there for my juvenile cases. Then I also do Child Protective Act and termination of parental rights cases.
Which is 105.
And I'm already at 130 cases right now. And that's where I ended my reporting year last year. So when you combine those caseloads, that's 2 full-time public defender jobs right there.
Well, and so that's why I say is whether you agree or disagree with the standards, that's, it appears that there's probably an issue with how they're assigned or something that way. Why are they all, and if it's just sheer, it's just the cup's overflowing everywhere, then that brings up a whole nother bag of, do you have other attorneys that you've brought in to help with that, manage that caseload, or is that just solely you that's doing it?
It is only me at my law firm, and I will tell you quite frankly, I'm losing money on this contract. I always did, and that's not why I took the contract. I took the contract because I believe in this work, because I know it's important work, and I want to do it. And so there's no other attorney in my law firm or in most private law firms who want to lose money practicing law.
So the other question would be is, especially if we look at this and if this is the case law, I mean, is there other attorneys that, how do I say it, underlings? How do we manage this? Because, okay, we're talking about changing money aspects, these other things, okay, I understand that. And if we change the budgetary aspect of it, how does that help manage then that caseload? Because if you have this amount of cases plus your civil cases, I can throw as much money as I want at somebody, but you only have so many hours in a year that you're going to work.
I think that's an excellent question. And my law firm, we have discussed recruiting a junior attorney to come in and help with managing that caseload. It is actually a very good training ground, I think, for young attorneys. So we have discussed that. I think, frankly, that the juvenile court needs 2 full-time conflict attorneys where they are dedicated to that court. I think that's how the best way to manage it. And the other thing you have to understand is that in juvenile cases, there are always conflicts because an attorney has to be appointed for the juvenile. If the parent is not managing the juvenile, then the parent can have criminal responsibility, so they get an attorney. In all Child Protective Act cases, each parent gets their own attorney in case they don't agree, and most of the time they don't. Plus, older children also get their own attorney. So there's always a conflict, always a conflict. So, and that's the problem. My child protective contract, I have as many cases as the full-time attorney general does, who does all of them, because I'm always assigned, because there's always a conflict. So my recommendation to the county would be we need more bodies dedicated to the juvenile court, for sure. And then whether we offload some of my caseload to other conflict attorneys outside of my office, or whether we try and bring somebody else into my office to help manage that caseload, one way or the other, we need more people doing the work.
Would it be more support staff or more attorneys would be more needed?
I think both, frankly. We've burned out a number of support staff just trying to manage my caseload at my office, frankly. And that is part of the Public Defender Commission's calculation as they calculate the caseload. And so if we bring more support staff, that would ease that burden for sure in the short term. But I think in the long term, you're going to need more conflict attorneys, and I think juvenile court needs 2 dedicated conflict attorneys. It really is almost impossible to juggle the caseload in that court. The volume is so high, it's unimaginably high, and the pace of the case is so fast that it is very difficult for the felony public defenders or the misdemeanor public defenders in adult court to be back and forth between the courts. You just can't even calendar that. They're being pulled in 2 different directions all the time. And that's why Judge Murray requested to have an attorney dedicated, a conflict attorney dedicated to his court, so that I could show up.
Mr. Chairman, you got me on a good day, I think, or just, I've been fighting the public defense battle with the legislature right now. Most of the time when people talk about contracts, it's like you signed the contract, you know what you're getting into, deal with it. As I started reading and prepping and getting ready last night, I really think that there's probably some very fundamental underlying issues, either through process, some other things that way, and if you're at that amount of caseload. And again, I always, I harass Dave about it, and he goes, "Oh, you guys just pad your case numbers. Come on, man." But I do think that there's probably, especially in the juvenile, that's always been since I came into office, the juvenile protection orders and those ones seem to be the most, I don't want to say labor intensive, but just intensive, keeping somebody involved with that, trying to keep those full, and I don't know how you weigh out what's the most important in justice, but the kids are probably the ones that you would probably look out for. So what I would probably say, Mr. Chairman, is if it's possible to have a little bit of time on this, to start we need to have a conversation. We need to understand this from Carrie and Judge Murray's perspective of what's going on. We need to see what the total case count for juveniles across the board is. We need to understand their scheduling mechanism of how they're doing this, and we probably need to start looking monetary wise right now, because we're in a budgetary cycle. We're in midstream. It's very difficult to just move something.
Yes.
But where we have budgetary cycle coming up and understanding what might possibly happen, which was supposed to be introduced into the legislature today, they're talking about taking public defense away from the counties altogether. And that was supposed to be introduced today. And it would go into a regional type system. And so it would be the regional area where you could have multiple attorneys, where it would spread the caseload standards across a much higher one. I think that we need to probably figure out some of those answers very quickly, but that's what I would ask for at this time.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments on the workload, because I'm looking through the IDAPA standards and trying to do some mental math on my own. I'm kind of where Commissioner Tubby is. I would like to see some more numbers, but I recognize the fact that I think we do have an issue with our conflict attorneys. And so,
I appreciate that.
just one last question. Of your week, how much time of your week is spent with this compared to your Maryland practice?
That's a really good question. As you can imagine, my life has been dedicated to my work for the last couple of years. I don't have a whole lot of free time right now, so I have to get my billable hours in order to pay my bills at the office. I would say I'm spending 3 to 4 days in juvenile court, and I'm able to dedicate maybe 1 day a week to my civil caseload, and that's not serving my civil clients either. It's really putting me in a very difficult position. What I would request, and this is more of a personnel matter, is the opportunity to renegotiate the language in my contract, which requires me to take all of the juvenile cases that are assigned to me, and that would help me be able to ask that other conflict attorneys take some of those cases.
And to go with that, I'm one of those people, I'm always willing to entertain proposals.
Okay.
And so I think what I'd ask then, Mr. Chairman, is if you have a proposal which you would like, I'm not saying that we may not take it, we may want to change it, but I would say that that's at least a starting ground, is please forward that on to Brian.
Okay.
And then, Mr. Chairman, we need to answer those questions along with that, because I think that would either determine what course of action would be built on understanding from the court's perspective of what's going on over there.
I appreciate that.
Because what I've noticed is in this, as we've been dealing with this in the last month and a half, 2 months, is that I don't think the left hand always knows what the right hand's doing, and the right hand has no idea what the brain's thinking, to be polite.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate what you've all said, but I still, when I received your letter and it says that you're not accepting any more cases till October.
Oh, I didn't say that. I really don't have a choice about that. I
Okay.
said I'm at the point where that's where I feel like in order to comply, that's what I would have to do. In order to be in compliance with the DAPA, that's where I would have to go.
Well, it just says I am unable to accept any more cases. And to me, that means that you were refusing to take any more cases, and that bothered me.
Yeah, no, I think in the letter, I suggested that I was reaching the point where that may be what it is. But I am still taking cases. I don't have a choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other part that we have talked very seriously about is bringing some of this stuff in-house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I think that that's a very good solution. I will tell you that if you hire a full-time juvenile public defender to work basically for the county, I would not leave my law firm to do that. But I would still be willing to take juvenile cases on a secondary basis, and would certainly be willing to help train somebody.
So we are, I mean, like I say, it's not just in juvenile, it's all through with conflicts that we're having problems and concerns about getting people to fill the positions.
Yes.
And, but where I stated before, Bannock County is the poster child of some of the things not to do, as we've talked to other counties.
We have, yeah, there's some of the things that are going on that we have tilted the balance of the scales of justice to one side. And we need to not do that, because when we throw that out to compensate, the arms race begins. And then we have the judiciary, which cannot keep up, which now the judiciary, we're looking at another district justice probably within the next 18 months and another magistrate within 3 years. So
Yeah.
we need to keep all of those things balanced.
Understand.
So-
Understand. All right, well, I appreciate the commissioner's time and attention to this.
I'd
It is
like to
important.
as we're working next week, we will be out of, we're not in the office next week for prior engagement, but I'd like to, we need to probably get this as soon as we get back. We need a meeting with Carrie and probably with Judge Murray and Judge Nass.
We'll get Braden back involved with it too.
Yep.
And as far as case numbers go, sorry, I did reach out to Carrie and ask for that same report that we had for Dan Taylor, right, on all of those conflicts, so that information is coming soon.
Okay.
So at least we've started that.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'm going to go down and use the library. This is my second one today. It started at 5 o'clock today, so I'll be right back.
We're gonna keep going.
Commissioners, I have a couple more items before the board. Kyle, please. I have Kyle Burmester, the Public Works Director. Public conflict, public
Some public
works.
guy.
It's close.
A lot of conflict.
Joining me today, we have, as a matter of review, we went out to bid a few months ago for environmental services credits, right, up at the event, the landfill. Nobody responded in a timely manner by the deadline. So that did open the county up, that we were able to pursue any avenues we had. We did have a couple interested parties in moving forward with proposals. We asked for those proposals and have reviewed them. As part of that review process, we were able to talk to clients that they currently serve, as well as other entities that we know work with the companies. And so as then we reviewed all of that information, we now have a recommendation to come before the board as far as how Kyle would like to move forward with that project.
So we, in our group that we reviewed these, there's a lot of that's kind of over our head. That's why I had Mike come to talk about that. So we sent this to Paragon for a review because they are working on 2 other landfills with the same kind of things going on. Some of the stuff in their plans of what they could do for us, we couldn't tell if that's what we needed or if they understood. So we found out that one of the groups is not actually, we don't have RINs. We're not creating a gas that's directly in the pipeline, so they're not even possible to what we need from them.
The proposal that Camilio submitted was that based on the assumption or something, we're not even quite sure how they know what we do. It wasn't in our proposal. We felt we were direct there. But as far as they are assuming, right, that we have a gas and a pipeline and they're just going to connect to that pipeline and go. That is not something we currently offer and are even looking at changing to. So then that made that one less competitive at all because that's not something we offer. Yeah.
Not compliant to our RFP.
Yeah.
So the one we're looking at going with is we'd like to go with the Carbone. In their paperwork, they said that there's kind of we were looking at getting a $12.50 per megawatt kind of deal with them, and that's what they've went, and that's at a 3-year agreement. That's what these other 2 landfills has went with, but since ours has took a little bit longer, they offered a $20. But that's dependent on EPA regulations, so you'll be kind of sitting in a waiting zone, which these other landfills are. So what they could do for us, and this is just part of what the contract's gonna be when we get it to review it. But right now, we're looking at probably $6 per rec. That equates to what our landfill at 27 to 30 megatons per year. We're looking at, around 138,000 for right now, just at the prices where we're at. We can go back 1 year and grab some monies off of last year's credits. These are all lower numbers. The $20 will be if a few things fall in line with EPA and with legislation, so.
Okay, we haven't seen any of this paperwork. as a
No,
commission.
we're kinda asking to go out for is, we'd like to go, we're recommending to move forward with contracting.
Yeah, to negotiate a contract. So none of this has been put in writing, right? It was just a proposal.
With Carbone. And it looks to us that that's almost our sole source, our only option.
Will the EPA come in and, if we do this, will they require some adjustments to our piping or flow or some internal things that we have to deal with?
No, part of that is that we have to have it certified that we are actually creating these racks and stuff like that, so it's in the reporting, and they're just kind of getting that together. I don't think it's a if they will do it, it's when. They're just trying to get that part of their process to know that that's all working out correctly. It would cost us a little bit more money in some gauges for that, but we're talking like $500 gauge, and we would have to do some reporting per year on guaranteeing what we are doing, which is total amount of like around $1,000. So we're not talking big money to have that reporting.
And you guys are the ones doing the reporting just off of the gauges and the stuff that you currently have, so it's not.
Kind of like we do with Idaho Power. We monitor how many kilowatts we're putting out there.
Okay. Good.
So I'd say go ahead and move forward. We'd like to see the paperwork. I mean, we're not signing anything until we have what we're looking at. And then Brian will look over it too and make sure the county's protected.
If there's going to be finances involved, the clerk will need to be involved to verify that we're getting the money we're supposed to be. We do the same thing with Idaho Power.
Okay.
So Jason will need to know.
Okay.
How many other landfills in Idaho are doing this, do you know?
There's not a lot of landfills in Idaho that are producing power. There's 2 others right now. Milner Butte, that's just out of kind of by Twin Falls, is doing it, and up in Coeur d'Alene
Yep.
has went with it. Kind of a new thing. And like I say, this was just some of the comments that they had from their other agreements. But when we get a contract, it should state out all these numbers for us and where we would be.
All right. You got a plan? Path? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Next is to review and request for approval of the issuing Detention Center Medical Bay Renovation. I did want to note that between the time that I submitted this to your packet and today, I added something. I wanted to be 100% sure. This project, we're bidding out 6 different options. We wanted to be able to do a one and done bid, that we didn't have to come back to the table every time we needed a project. But we also wanted to encompass potentially the possibility that we could get a general contractor that would then sub out all the work and do it all for us. So in having that proposal, I did want to be 100% certain when these bids come back in what the company was bidding on. So the piece that I added to was a cost proposal that then lists out option 1 through 6. So then it's very clear on if they're bidding 2 and 4, great, and then the proposal of the number that they're talking about there. So that was the addition that I had made to your packet after submitting it for review. And just to clarification as those businesses submit those bids, there's some of them, like with the ceiling, sometimes they have other subcontractors that they work with, that they might want to tag team up with, and maybe they want to do the tile and the ceiling or something like that. But we wanted to be very certain as the people submit bids to us what it is they're proposing and then the cost, so then we can properly identify and compare apples to apples. Did the board have any other requests, questions, or?
No, you've talked to maintenance out there at the jail. I mean, this is so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a project that they're gonna be overseeing. So.
Yeah, Levi was integral in building this. He did the sketches at the back, right? He has been a phenomenal resource, as well as then we tag team on experience from both Jeff Underwood and Daniel Kendall in their building and stuff to really get what we feel is a good project moving forward. We have a lot of companies interested already as they hear us, reaching out with questions about standards or scopes of work, things like that we need to include for clarification. So we do have quite a list of companies that we're already going to reach out to, as well as put it on our website. And we have that list ready to go and once it is officially approved.
Move forward.
Yep.
We look forward.
Okay.
Perfect. If that is approved, then we'll get that issued out today. It'll be on the website today. And at least those emails to the companies as far as if they are interested, right, to contact us for additional information. We'll go forward as well. The last item I have is the weekly update for the commission. Before I get into the details, I just wanted to do a general update. And I'm sad that Mike's not here. So as part of Commissioner Tubby's direction and guidance as far as passing things through our county engineer, Mike and I have talked and discussed, and for the time being, we're going to pass all projects through the county engineer. He's just going to do a once-over, right, like you guys reviewed the packet. He reviews that packet similar to legal, right? So they're looking for things in his line of work, right, that would need a signature or something like that. To date, right, he just sends them back and says, right, everything looks great, proceed forward with, according to the city of Pocatello's plans, if we're redoing something, here at the courthouse, or that this has, nothing to do with the engineering world, if it was a truck or something like that.
Okay.
So we've started that process, and right, there'll be kinks to work out, but so far everything's going fantastic there. And then last week I was able to meet with Christy as far as project tracking goes, and we have created a plan to coordinate for at the beginning of a project, right, as far as the budget and the line items go, and then her office will track all of the expenses, and at the end we'll tag team up again and understand if we were over budget, under budget, on time, all of that stuff to come forward for review. So as the sheriff's office project finishes out with the flooring, we didn't ask to track that one, so that will be a little bit of a learning curve as we're beginning this process. But as new one comes in, the computer services one was the brand new one we added. We'll be able to track that one from start to finish. And, so again, adjust things as we need to, but we've got a plan to move forward.
And how much under budget we're going to be?
Yes,
okay.
Always.
Clarification.
Always. Under budget and quicker than we thought. Just a few updates for you. We've added the emergency services fuels reduction grant that we're just gathering up specifications and things like that in the course that we may move forward with that. If we don't choose to move forward, right, the project just sits, but I did want to be prepared and ready if we chose to move forward with those. So we started up that one. The medical bay renovation just became before the board for review and approval, and that will be issued out this afternoon. And then we have received one bid on the architectural services for the historical roof already. though they're not due until the 1st of February. So we will wait till that date comes, but we have at least one on that one. So things are moving forward. Are there any questions or?
No, I read through this last night. I didn't have anything.
Great. All right. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time, and we'll get it going.
Wes?
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Emergency Director, and I brought in Charity Staggs with the Southeast Idaho Council of Government. And what we're talking about and going to be taking a look at is the 2 fuel reduction projects through the Idaho Department of Lands. And those 2 projects are very similar in nature, very similar in scope. But what we need to put together is the contractual obligations to delineate and determine who's doing what and where for not only the Idaho Department of Lands, but for Bannock County, the administrative aspect from SCOG, project manager, who would be somebody that we'd bring on to actually oversee the function and the activities out in the field, and the contractor that's actually performing the work. So what I wanted to do is I brought Charity in so she could explain the next steps, where we're at now and where we need to go, because we have a really condensed window of opportunity to get these things put in place and to moving forward.
Great. So was there any specific questions or concerns about the process?
Bids are due, or
Next
proposals are due next week?
So those applications are sitting in his office right now. It sounds like the money has already been set aside for those projects. He made it sound like we just need to move.
What does move mean?
We need to get the budget made. We need to get whoever you want to do the administration work and the project management and the contractor. We need to start that procurement process.
I think before we start all this, don't we need the grant application to be put in Bannock County's name and accepted by Bannock County? Because right now it's at Port of Soil's name, right?
Well, they've turned it back, so I don't believe it's in anybody's name.
I think
But don't we need a formal
Yeah, I think we need-
application saying that it's going to be us?
Yeah, I
doing
think I think the state probably has allocated funds.
this? Right.
Now the grant has been altered and changed, and if it's not accepted in a granting window, then those funds would probably go away.
But at some point.
Yes,
Bannock
it has to
County
be.
needs say
It has to be in
it
ours.
does,
So
right?
before we even get there, let's back up a little bit and help me paint the picture, because unfortunately, Wes, as much as I love you guys, I haven't really had enough time to be. I mean, I've had some snippets, but explain to me. Okay, so what specifically are you going to do? Let's start there. Help educate me that way.
CCOG will do all the paperwork and compliance work.
Okay. So just like CCOG's done with multiple other local government entities all over southeast Idaho.
Yep, what we're good at.
Okay, so you're going to do your subject matter, what you guys do. You will put all of the accounting stuff, all that stuff, and you'll have it presentable for the auditor's office for their review, for their sign off, all that good stuff. If it doesn't meet the muster of, then it comes back and then it comes to us for approval. That's what you're talking about doing?
Yep.
Okay, so field work. Do you do the field work, or do we need a project manager, we need a grant manager. So are you saying that you're going to do the grant management and the field work, or are you just going to do the grant management and then we'll provide the field manager, project manager through our sector, or however we decide?
We'll do the administration, the grant management, the project management. We will help you with the procurement process to make sure that's legal.
Okay.
But that would have to be someone else.
Do we do? Okay, because you can't have the same keys in the same office, right? Can't have the project manager and the grant manager in the same thing working together in the same umbrella house?
It sounds like you can, but
Not best practice.
not best practice.
All right, so I'm painting this through in my head. So instead of us killing you guys right now and saying, "Hey, Christy, guess what you get to do?" You guys can act as do all the paperwork upon their review, everything that's there.
Make it consumable so it's easy for you.
And then you'll give it to us and we'll submit the reimbursement.
We will send you the reimbursement request. We'll have it all built. But you'll need to process the invoices, and we'll need the check number to add to the, so you'll review the reimbursement after we've
Right.
already built it.
We'll give
Get
you a
everyone
proof of
paid.
payment. We'll,
Mhm.
we'll pay the vendor, we'll give you
Yeah.
proof of payment, right?
Yeah, so we'll need the check number, I'll add it to the
Documentation.
reimbursement
Mhm.
and submit.
You'll submit for us.
Mhm.
And who will the check go to?
I will send you those invoices.
No, so when the state reimburses us for the payment, are
to
they gonna
the
pay us
county.
directly, or are they gonna pay you and you'll pay us?
They'll pay the county.
All right.
So, as we're talking about this, what we're talking about right here is CCOG moving in where Port of Soil and Water was. As the administrator?
No, they are the paperwork arm for Wes. So instead of Wes
Okay.
having to hire a part-time, or instead of Christie having to do all of that, CCOG can do that right now.
Okay.
Well, I don't think in this shortened time frame, and I don't think we could hire people and bring people in and Christie, we've got enough stuff, I think, on your plate right now. I don't think it would be,
No, this
I'm
is-
not saying that we couldn't do it.
Yeah, this is good, I need to know
Yeah.
what the roles and what things are gonna
Well,
be done. so
you're in the
I can
same
make
boat
sure
with me
when
sitting right
auditor
here.
shows up, I can tell them with
Same
really
thing.
good faith that it's good.
Hey, we're all in the same boat right
I just
now,
need to
don't
know
feel
what's
bad,
going
but it's been a busy, crazy, so I'm asking questions here, because I
And I
know you're.
appreciate that.
Okay, because we're all, and again, this is moving fairly quick and kind of understanding the state.
And just so I'm clear, and I'm kind of like Commissioner Tubby here, just will you delineate the activities that you do specifically so that we're all on the same page if you will do A, B, and C?
Yep, and I've been building a cheat sheet for you guys
Okay.
for exactly that. I've already have some edits that I'm gonna add to it. But, what else was coming up? To clarify, something that came up my brain,
Christie.
Bannock County will be the grantee, so all the funds will be going through Bannock County. I'll be doing all the paperwork, CCOG will be. Project manager, will get that hired with procurement process, the proper procurement process. I know of at least one organization in the region that does that type of work for these type of projects already, like these exact projects.
Is that the one that's working with the city of Pocatello, or is that a
High
different
Country.
one? Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to get them procured properly if that's who we're interested in. And then there's 2 different contractors that do this type of work, so they're out there. We can get it moving pretty quick.
That's
Yeah.
one area that, in that procurement end of it,
We need to open.
we're
bid.
gonna open it up for bids, because that's where we run into
Yep.
problems with the other group.
Yep.
And we're gonna be right online there. I
Yep.
just
I got
telling you
the
right up
procurement
front.
laws in my office, tabbed up, highlighted.
I know
Got you
I know you
covered.
said there might be 2, but I already know just with asking in my commissioner's role, there's a lot more than 2 in this state. And I think we need to open it and bid it to everybody and let everybody go for it, because then there is no, as kind of volatile as this
Yeah.
thing's been,
Yep, it'll be a publication.
it's above board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just where
Yeah.
we're headed.
And like I said, I know coming in here can be kind of nerve wracking. You just saw what we've had to go through today. We're pretty all nice and amenable, and like I say, I would like just that procurement, what we need, what the proposal is, of what exactly we're going to do, what that contract with CCOG would look like. I would like Christie's office to be able to shoot and make sure that we haven't missed anything, or if we need to add something in there, and make sure roles, responsibilities, and tasks to, I was going to say tasks to subordinate units, but I'm going to do it on that one. But tasks to parties is all identified, so we don't have those implied tasks. Well, I thought you were doing this, and I thought you were doing that. And so let's,
Yep, and I can help with that too. I do have a contract here. We've already identified, Wes and I've already identified a few things that will need changes, but you can go ahead and review that. Let me know what you think for the grant administration part specifically. And then part of my roles as the grant administrator, I will help write the RFP for the project manager, the request for bids, send that to you guys to review it, because it is getting published in your name.
yes.
And then we will publish it as part of our fees.
Yeah, that would be helpful with Shanda on that. In regards to the project manager, I was visiting with Kyle about this the other day, and he suggested we consider using the director of weed and feed out there now, especially. with
Director of
the-
mosquito.
Mosquito, yes.
Weed and feed.
Yeah, mosquitoes.
It's like, we have a feed department? What have I missed here, guy?
As this grant will take place a lot during the winter and in the fall when they have some opportunity to
We
do
can
that.
overlap.
So
Where will
there
we-
may be some opportunities for that.
We'll need to look at where we pay him.
Yes.
Correct.
Because mosquito and noxious can't, or mosquito.
Yeah, it's its own levy.
But
Correct.
But you could then, we'd have to create probably a revenue
pay him out
line.
of the grant.
Well, yeah, and so
Yes.
the grant would come in and that's.
So that's easy.
Yeah.
That was
That's
the
easy.
idea, is that we could reduce some of that burden on weed and mosquito and make that up with the grant, if that would work
Whatever
out.
percentage of time and, however we do that. Okay. Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner, I'd recommend that then let's get that contract before legal. If we could get you guys to sit down and just identify, and with Shanda, and have roles and responsibilities, so we identify everything that's gonna be hit. We're gonna be out of the office for a couple days. You're not gonna be there.
Get the grant in our name.
Yes, the grant in our name. We need to do that immediately. Or make them, I think they understand what's going on because, but there is a deadline that if it's not probably processed.
Is the deadline for this, is it the 4th, or is that for the 2023 grants is the 4th?
When I talked to Tyre at IDL, he didn't give me a specific deadline for these guys. It sounds like it's kind of already passed, but he wants to get these moving.
They've had probably the award had occurred, but the award hasn't been.
Some
And
things
if,
came
and if
up.
they don't have it done in a certain amount of time, they have to return funds. That's probably what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'd say let's see if we could kind of ping these things together and get it back on that Friday that we get back, that meeting, and this would be a work session on that Friday, because we have,
It's a week from tomorrow.
yeah. Can we make that?
You're gonna be gone too.
Yeah, I'm not sure when we're gonna get together, because I'll be gone. So,
Well, you can communicate by email with most
Yeah.
of that stuff, so.
If
I
we-
can, if you could just send me what you think you're gonna do and all that stuff, then I'm always available by email. And you've got my card, I gave it to you last week, right?
I don't believe so.
What we'll do to make sure that we're consistent across the board is Charity's gonna go back and make modifications and changes to the 2 contracts.
And if anything comes up with your attorney, thank you.
No, they'll be.
I'll get those added.
Oh, they'll be.
She's also got the crosswalk that we were working on, and she just provided a copy to Christie.
Okay.
So I'll provide all 3 of these documents when we have them updated, not only to Christie, but Brian and the commission, so everybody's getting the same information simultaneously, and it's the
Cool.
same information.
Perfect.
I'm good with that.
That'll work. We're excited to move forward with it. I think it'll be good for the county.
Yes.
Yeah. And then just as a note, once the contract looks good and everything, for a procurement process, you will need to hire CCOG by motion before you sign it.
Yes, we will.
Correct.
Everything by the letter. We're gonna follow it.
Yeah.
All right.
We don't do anything without a motion around here, so you should wait till we go to the ambulance district. Bad inside joke.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christie.
Mr. Crowder, Bannock County Comptroller, on the agenda for me, I am to present to you per statute 311611, the budget to actual revenue and expenditures. So we have the revenue report I'm not 100% fan of, so I will continue to find a better report for that, because normally we include our property taxes so that you can see where we're at with collections on those. I will find that. I tried looking for one yesterday afternoon, and I'm not familiar with the system enough to be able to do that. But revenues do not look amazing. That's just simply because we haven't received our first quarterly payment from the state on anything. That'll come in January. So, not a lot to look at. Plus, there's not a lot of activity going on this time of year.
Yeah.
A little bit maybe in planning and zoning, but
That's about it.
that's about it. As far as the expenditures, this is a little bit different than what you're traditionally used to. The only departments that I really had much concern about were probably some similar ones that Commissioner Moser had. If you go through, you can look at, we just tend to look at bottom line So I skim the reports and see where we're at, bottom line accounting. And Commissioner Moser did find some that were within the budgets. Those I don't tend to worry about too much, like I talked to him about, just simply because we worry about the bottom. I will look and see if somebody is over 25% spent, because that's where we should be right now, unless there's certain anomalies when you guys tend to pay your juvenile detention billing. That will throw a big wrench in your bottom line. So I'll usually point that out as we're going through this.
And as she's talking there, one of them that I brought up is, there was 2 lines in the commissioner's budget line that were 171 and 113%. But our bottom line, we're at 24% or 23%. So we're good, but I just want to always check that, make sure that we are following what we're asking everybody else to do
And
at
you're
the
at
same time.
24.6. So you're right on track. So with the logic of looking at anything that's over 25%, the assessor's office is a little bit high. That's because of their software maintenance. So that's the anomaly that I was talking about. If you have one big expenditure, that's going to throw your percentage for a loop. Most of their other expenditures will be minuscule. The coroner's budget is a little bit high right now. I think that's partially because they had some office setup to do and also some new vehicles that they got ready to go with decals, etc. So they're at 39.9%. I will have a discussion with Tori and letting him know that he is at 40%, and that traditionally, if it was because of professional services or transports, items like that, then what I would do is bring that to your attention and say, hey, it looks like he's got a busier year already started, and we might have to start looking at contingency.
Yeah.
Some of the spending is not because of that, so he might need to hold the line a little bit, but also know that he has spent 40% of his professional services already this year. So we might be in a situation with him. You should have seen him. I emailed it like yesterday afternoon.
Oh, all right.
We might have some problems there, so we might want, I'll continue to monitor the autopsies and see where that's going to put us. Maybe things will slow down and they'll catch back up. Continuing on through, I really didn't see any other problems until I got to the landfill gas system. And that one is on page, you don't have the full report, but online you do.
I have the email
Okay.
that I'm looking at right now.
So,
In expenditures?
Yeah, my numbers are off.
What page?
I'm getting there. It used to be right before mosquito, but we changed the number on it. And I, of course, didn't write the number down because I knew where it was at. So I'm looking for it. It is on page 84 and 85. They're only at about 30%, so not a huge deal. It could just be power this time of year is throwing them a little higher, but it's going to slow down in the summertime, hopefully. The next is 911. They are at 37%, but that could also be because they just spent the bulk of their money on some contracts.
I don't see a lot of that stuff was up front in the year,
Yeah.
preloaded.
Yeah, so, but we'll continue to monitor that and make sure that that's why. That budget, we do have the potential for possibly opening the budget, because if we start getting the collections of the dollar versus the 99 cents, maybe we'll get a little bit more money back if we need to open the budget.
Okay.
So we'll just continue to monitor that. I did want to let you know, as you go through some of these, we don't have all of the budgets in for the grants, just simply because we're working on those still. The priority was our normal departments. That's all I got.
Did you, I had a conversation with Tyson yesterday about some concerns about the fuel budget going forward. Have they talked to you at all about that?
Nope. It's a valid concern. Fuel is a lot higher, and usually when we look at balancing the budget, we look at trend information, and last July, August, we had no clue that fuel was going to go up the way it has. So we'll just have to watch that. Some of the departments might just need to hold something back unless you are willing to look at giving them contingency money, but it's January and I would hate to throw that obligation out there if
Well,
we have a means to.
It was just one of those things that we were talking about yesterday that I wanted to bring up today, that's something we're gonna have to pay close attention to going forward, because Tyson's already concerned about it.
He is at.
I talked to Scott.
And Scott.
He's not allowing his guys to drive certain vehicles. He's not, I mean, he's already watching.
Well, and right now, the fuel is at 27%, but that could be a little distorted because of the timing that we do the rebill for the
Yeah.
other departments. I've only done one of those this year, and so by the time I do a little bit more reallocation for the other departments, that might help that
What page are you
that
on
out,
there?
36. However, if you look at the other departments' fuel, that's at 31%. So it's going to be a concern,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Okay.
But they might be able to do some, I mean, from a budgetary standpoint, they might need to start looking at some other holdbacks or not spending money.
Same with the coroner on the other end.
Exactly. The sheriff's office is at 19% on their spending, so they're on track and should be okay unless something different happens.
Okay.
I
I
can
just
look
wanted
at
to point out the
Scott's.
fuel today, just so everybody's aware of it.
Well,
There's a red flag in.
I like that report.
Yeah.
It just,
Good.
you
Yeah.
can read it, you can
It's easy.
Yay, we have
have
a good one.
conversations about it.
Yeah.
And Scott's right now is doing okay. He is high on repairs and maintenance. But for the most, he's only 14%.
Yeah.
And I would need to look at where he was last year, but if he's been doing winter maintenance,
And they've been
Then-
going through stuff.
that's probably why he is where he is. But he'll spend a lot of money moving forward once projects get going.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the report as presented by the comptroller under Idaho Code 31611.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and it passes unanimously. Emma,
Are you Christie today?
I'm Christy today. I
Okay.
don't know if you need this, but I printed them off just in case. Copies of what we're talking about here. Am I actually Public Information Officer and for Christy Davenport? We are presenting for approval a new hardship exemption application that includes additional requirements for applying. Basically, I believe Christie's updated you, but as we were going through updating the homeowner property tax cancellation and exemption, we looked over at Ada County's application, and they required a lot more information from their applicants. That was a bit more thorough, and so we kind of copied what they had and made it our own. I'm trying to remember what specifically we added. I know that we added a section about whether or not they'd applied for the circuit breaker before or in the past. So, but just kind of a lot of extra information for you guys.
the ages and relationship of individuals in the home is something that I believe is new on
Yes.
this form. I mean, there's quite a bit that's new, but it's got a lot more information for
I'm
us
okay
to
with
look
it.
over.
I like it.
If you're coming in to ask for cancellation, great. Let's give us the information.
Let's do it the easy way. Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the tax hardship form as presented to be used by the county.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Do we need your signature or anything?
No,
Nope.
no.
We will get that uploaded to the website. for the application process.
Okay. Thank you. I believe that's